the sound of a million marchers headed to City Hall. I am the one that you call when you question if there is a God at all. I don't care who you pray to. Patron saint, God step on these racists. Brown goddess with war paint. God stepping, I'm God stepping. See what they done did now. Told them if they pushed us too far, I would come out. Bury me in a shallow grave. Next year I bear fruit. Eric Garner, Mike Brown, hands up, don't shoot. Bury me in a shallow grave. Next year I bear fruit. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, hands up, hands up. The fight is not over just because George Chavez got convicted. The fight is still going. And every artist, everybody that makes music, you need to be writing about stuff like this. Otherwise, your music ain't relevant. Hands up. Hands up. Hands up.
Don't shoot.
No justice. No justice. No racist police. I see y'all out there.
You're gonna be all right. You've been through this before. We've also seen media reports that police in Vallejo bend their badges to signify that they've killed someone. In the past years, Vallejo has paid nearly $16 million in legal settlements involving the police, many thousands of dollars more per officer than America's largest police departments. According to reporting by the New Yorker, Vallejo is currently facing at least 24 use of force cases, which it estimates could cost $50 million. DA Krishna Abrams, who recused herself, has not prosecuted any of the police officers involved in violent misconduct over recent years. Last year, she had a Blue Lives Matter image on her Facebook page until a civil rights attorney pointed it out. Former Attorney General Javier Becerra said the AG's office would conduct an investigation on the destruction of evidence, but he instructed DA Abrams to investigate. No action was taken to launch an investigation for 11 months until newly appointed Rob Bonta. We have made deep sacrifices to get to this point. For almost a year, our family has fought constantly to keep Sean's name in the press, to keep fighting for justice, and despite our grief, exhaustion, and pain. Last fall, we were arrested with 17 other protesters outside of Governor Gavin Newsom's home during a nonviolent civil disobedience for Sean after being met with silence and inaction for months. We endured retaliation from the California Highway Patrol during the time that we were held in jail. The announcement that an investigation will take place is just the first step, but we are relieved that action will finally be taken. We are encouraged by the fact that this will be done by Attorney General Rob Bonta and the Department of Justice directly. It feels incredibly meaningful to finally receive the respect our family and Sean deserved for the past nearly 12 months, 1 year now. We recognize that other families have suffered from similar injustice as ours, and so we also hope the Attorney General's office will establish new protocols for investigating all police-involved shootings in California. Ultimately, we want justice for Sean, and we want that justice to mean that this can't happen to anyone anywhere else. And best believe, we're pushing to be the last family affected by the Vallejo Police Department. Only a handful of officers in the state of California have ever been charged for killing a civilian, and only one officer in the state has ever been convicted.
There are hundreds of families like ours whose loved ones unjustly were taken and whose pleas for accountability went unanswered. We hope that our struggle and sacrifice will ultimately build a bridge between impacted families and legislators and elected officials who have the power to bring justice to our loved ones. We also want to see meaningful legislative change, like passing SB 2, which would create a mechanism for decertifying officers who are unfit to wear a badge. This is crucial because officers who are fired from one police department often end up working for another department somewhere else.
Police are the only licensed profession who currently cannot be decertified for unethical and harmful actions. Virtually everyone else, from barbers to lawyers, will lose their license if they violate the trust placed by them in the state. Simply put, the police are not able to police themselves, and that's why it's crucial that California Senate pass SB 2 this year. The time has come for California to step up and finally stand with the survivors of police violence. Thank you all.
I say thank you for everybody for joining us to justice for Sean and their resident families for the Bay Area. And we have another family from Wisconsin. Justice for everybody here. And thank you so much. God bless you.
Say his name. Say his name. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. We want to introduce Lee Merritt, commonly known as the People's Lawyer, who's emerging as an influential new voice for the fight for social justice, a civil rights activist and attorney. Merritt runs and founded a Merritt of high-profile practice, the Merritt Law Firm, focusing on victims of police brutality, hate crimes, and corporate discrimination. As an activist, he has championed police reform and community empowerment. I am proud to say that he is taking on the case for Sean Monterrosa. Let's give it up for Lee Merritt.
No justice?
No peace.
No justice?
No peace.
I want you all to practice saying something that we've come to say in organizing a community across the country. It's a simple statement. It says, we do not consent. Can you all say that with me? We do not consent. We do not consent. I was speaking with two of my spiritual advisors, a 6-year-old Ilana and Laura over here, and they said, you know, there's a lot of pictures over there. Those represent dead people, and it's kind of creepy. And I had to agree with them. And then little Elon said, yeah, but there's a lot more people alive still. And I said, you know what? You're right. We could focus on what we've lost, but it's more important, I think, to focus on the spiritual power that they represent and the power that they give us. And they give us the power to stand up and say something simple, which is, we do not consent to American policing. We don't consent to militarized policing that takes the lives of so many people on a regular basis. In fact, what is clearly the deadliest police culture in the modern world, we don't consent to that. And I'm encouraged by something, again, speaking to these two 6-year-olds. The world that they grow up in is going to be different from the world that you and I grew up in, because you all decided to stand up and fight today. I can think of, I'm based out of North Texas, which is a place that is known for backing the blue-friendly culture. And when I moved to Dallas County, they hadn't convicted a police officer for the murder of a black man in their history. They hadn't convicted a police officer of any crime in 50 years. But the people of Dallas began to pay attention. They began to stand up, and when 15-year-old Jordan Edwards was killed by a police officer in Balch Springs, Texas, the people decided that they did not consent. The prosecutor was still a conservative Republican, a Trump appointee. The city was still Texas. I mean, he's still located in one of the more conservative districts in the world. But the police officer, Roy Oliver, who was responsible for murdering 15-year-old Jordan Edwards, he went to jail serving a 15-year plus life sentence for the first time in the history of Dallas, Texas. You know why? People stood up and said, we don't consent. When I first heard about the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, his mom called me, Wanda Cooper. She gave me a call in my office in Dallas, and she described to me how her son had been gunned down in the street, and that a false story was provided that he was robbing homes or something. And it had gone for months, and no one had paid any attention to it. And the people of Glenn County, of South Georgia, and eventually people all across the country and across the United States said, you know what? We don't consent to this. This is not going to work for us. And the people stood up. And today, all 3 of the men responsible for his murder have been charged with murder, both at a state level and at a federal level. The prosecutors who are responsible for the cover-up are all under federal investigation, and we look forward to indictments in that case. The laws in Georgia's changed so that there's a new hate crime law in Georgia, and that the vigilante law from the civil rights era was removed from the books. In other words, when we stand up as a people and say we don't consent, we change things. And so little Elon and Laura, they don't have to grow up in the same society that we grew up in, because we get to fight. So I'm not going to waste your time telling you all a lot of words. I know right now that there is power right here. Right now, more than any movement I've ever been a part of, there's more people here centered on fighting for Sean Monterrosa than I've seen people at the start of a fight, or a year later. More importantly, the family of Ronald Green has been fighting for 2 years for justice in this case. And it was when a community like this organized and stood up that you all suddenly knew that Ronald Green was beat to death, and he didn't die in a traffic accident in Louisiana, and that the officers responsible for him, we know their names: Corey York, James Clary, Dakota DeMoss. Those officers are going to go to jail for murder because we do not consent. Say it with me. We do not consent. We do not consent. We do not consent to the murder of Sean Monterrosa. We do not consent to the murder of Sean Taylor. We do not consent to the murder of Jamel Roberson. We do not consent to the murder of Tatiana Jefferson. We do not consent to this system of policing, and so we're going to burn it the hell down. Let's get started.
Let's give it up for Teresa. You know, she said we got to keep the same energy for the families. So let's welcome up Mario Wood's family, Oscar Grant's family, and Stephen Taylor's family. Come on, louder.
Thanks everyone that came out in this remembrance. To the Monterrosa family, I acknowledge heartfelt, and I'm thankful that you guys are going slow for Sean. When attorneys are not going to stand up and fight for your baby, don't listen to what they're telling you. Because that attorney told me, even with a video, he couldn't win my baby's case. We also got to talk about, I was hearing some young folks talk about culture vultures. Culture vultures is the people that made their political climb at a city where they did nothing about their policing. Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, Ed Lee, and he's no longer here, he's under feds investigation. So when you have a city that's rampant and polluting and just disgust, they go out and they annihilate and they execute, because they executed my son Mario, and it's on the video, and there's no accountability. And let me say, it wasn't just Mario that the blood runs in these streets. It is Idris Steele, it is Alex Nieto, it is Kenneth Hardy, it is Jessica Williams, it is O'Shane Evans, it is Keita O'Neal, it is my child, Mario Wood, it is Amaro Perez, it is, who else? Luis Gongora, Derek Gaines. No officer has been held accountable. And if we keep voting because you're black and you look like me, and I think you're gonna do it, you're gonna work it out for me, that's not it. You're not going to be in my best interest. So because you look like me, don't mean you have my best interest. And I'm telling you, they don't have our best interest. From the Nancy Pelosi, who has a zip code in San Francisco and insulted us by putting a kente cloth on her like we don't have the sense when they did that to George Floyd. You can't be mute on this. There's people in San Francisco don't even know how much blood this police force has shed. And let me tell you, it's nationwide. I think they actually call each other and tell each other nationwide, guess what? You got to get one under your belt. It's your turn. Because even after George Floyd What happened? Becky, the blonde one, said she just like your baby. I thought it was my taser. No, you didn't. That's all intentional. We have to keep making them feel uncomfortable. I have a group. Thank you, F12. Thank you, Lionhearted Crypto. Thank you, my people. Thank you for walking up to Charles August and letting him know we're calling you out, Charles August. You're the house Negro because you led the Calvary. We can't let them be comfortable. Unless you feel there is a revolution coming, then maybe you're going to stand up and take notice because the pushback is going to be real. And if you keep playing with these mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and cousins mentality at this blood loss, at this shed where we can Google our loved one and we can see the last image of them being slaughtered like an animal. And unless you can't tell me, I don't care what you have, white boys rape in broad daylight. Brock Turner, Dylan Roof in the Bible study and annihilated. And he gets a courtesy of a Burger King burger and a bulletproof vest. And you get that white boy in Kenesha walking down the street with assault weapons on his back. But the cops didn't even stop him. Because you know why? He was going to do what they wanted him to do. Annihilate. He did their job that they itched